Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on cloud computing. Today, my guest is from the TheInfoPro of 451 Research. We have Peter ffoulkes, and Peter is Research Director of Servers and Virtualization at the company. Peter, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Rich, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Well, Happy New Year to you as well. So, Peter, I guess, we've known each other for a long time, but why don't we start at the beginning and tell us who is the TheInfoPro and who do you help?
Okay. So, the TheInfoPro is a company that was founded back in the early 2000s by Ken Mail and was acquired by 451 Research a little under 2 years ago. And what we do is primary research looking at Fortune 1000 enterprises and their IT plans. So we're actually talking to CIOs, IT architects with a one-on-one, roughly hour-long telephone call, talking about their projects, their challenges, their budgets, the technologies they have in use today, the technologies they plan to be implementing over the next couple of years, which vendors they're using, which vendors they plan to be using, and what they think of them, how well they're executing against their promises, and things of that nature.
So this is the research we're going to talk today about. It's kind of forward-looking, isn't it?
It's totally forward-looking. Yes, we actually get an opportunity to get direct from the horse's mouth, so to speak, where these large companies are going and where their spending is likely to go, looking out about 2 years, which is a little different to some of the other research companies that get a historical perspective and then use their intelligence to project forwards. We're actually getting the actual plans from our respondents.
Well, terrific. Well, Peter, I brought your slides up. Why don't we start there, and we'll follow that up with a Q&A.
Perfect. So if we move to slide number 2, then here we're just looking at servers and virtualization budget trends. Now, overall, spending is sort of flattening as we go into 2013 and the future years. But there is something slightly unusual happening here, because as people get more and more into virtualized enterprise production environments, what they're finding is they need to refresh their x86 architecture. More modern systems, higher core counts, more memory, that kind of stuff, all the sorts of things that are required in a virtualized environment. So we're seeing a sort of big blip move through the system. And this can be up to like a 600% increase in somebody's server budget just in 1 year as they refresh a lot of these systems. And then, of course, it sort of goes flat for the next couple of years until they get back into the spending cycle again. And so we're seeing this one-time blip year over year sort of move through the system against that sort of flattening trend. So, the budgets were up last year about 46%, increased spending over the previous year. In the coming year, 2013, we're expecting about 29% of people to have increased budgets, 49% no change. And once this has worked through the system, we'll get back to a more sort of steady state where people will then get back into their sort of cyclic purchasing cycles. Although there are a couple of things that are changing. As people do virtualization, typically their efficiency levels for those servers tends to go up. And that means at one level they need fewer servers to do the same amount of work. But there are also other spending influences that come into play, because those servers can run more virtual machines, which typically means they need more memory. So the cost of the configuration is going up, even though there are smaller numbers of servers. And associated with that, in a virtualized world, you need to have a sort of seamless connection between storage and network and servers, both for deploying virtualized apps and for all the work that they need to do when they're active. And so we're also seeing virtualization pushing up spending in technologies like 10 gigabit Ethernet and storage systems on the network with solid-state storage being added, et cetera, et cetera. And this shows the spending changes on mainstream technologies. And the top part of the chart, we can see the sort of virtualization-related technologies and, of course, database, data warehouse software technologies where spending is growing. In the middle, things like Unix virtualizations, mainframe servers, etc., those are fairly stable. Most people that have got them are doing things with them. It's not really increasing. It's not really going down. Where we're seeing less spending is very much in the area of Unix and RISC-Itanium servers. And in terms of server counts in that RISC-Itanium area, we've seen about an 11% decline in server counts in 2012 compared with the previous year. So although Unix has long been the mainstay of back-end business systems, it is steadily getting sort of replaced by x86 and Linux-based systems and turning into that dreaded category that we call legacy systems. So things like HPUX and Itanium, Spark and Solaris, and to some degree AIX and Power are all being affected by that, although AIX and Power seem to be faring better than the solutions from the other vendors at this point in time. If we have a look at slide number 10, this is quite an interesting one because it shows what's going on as people virtualize their environments. It's certainly the big activity in most data center shops today. However, it's a multi-year journey. And out of the people we've spoken to, which is about overall about 175 people, and in this particular case, a subset of that, about 35 of them, we were looking at, do they feel they've completed the journey, or is it still some years out? And so about 29% of people said that their virtualization journey was already complete. That means that the rest, of course, have still got to finish off doing their production applications, testing them before they're going to be ready. And so that's going to keep rolling out over the next few years. They reckon another 23% will finish this year, 2013, and then sequentially after that, 2014, 2015. And this is actually quite important because until people have got their applications virtualized and have got their virtualized environment working, they're not really able then to move to the next stage, which is moving into cloud-based environments, either private internal cloud or to leverage public cloud assets. And so this is something that is, if you like, slowing down the move to cloud as people prepare their applications and infrastructure to be able to use it. In this virtualized environment, one of the things that are affected, of course, are the technologies that are used to deploy this. Now, clearly people buy servers, but one of the things that we're really seeing, as I mentioned earlier, is this spending in other associated technologies. And on this particular chart, we're looking at people's in-use and planned expenditure over the next couple of years. So the dark blue shows what technologies people have in use today. The orange shows what technologies people have said they have no plans to deploy. And the interesting bit is the multicolored section in the middle, because that is where people are going to start spending for the first time in the next couple of years on a certain technology. So it shows potential for market opportunity. Now, the 10 gigabit Ethernet backbone is an area that's already in use, but there's still significant uptick in spending over the next couple of years. Storage, whether it's network storage, tiered cache, a lot of activity on solid-state disk going onto network storage to provide the rapid access that you need to data in a virtualized environment. This, in fact, is in many ways also quite similar to the sort of things you see in HPC, where you have large data and analytics going on, and you need to get rid of any of the network and storage latencies that can slow down applications. And a final area that's quite interesting is this thing that people call converged infrastructure or integrated infrastructure. And that area, which is designed to bring together all of the technologies that are required for a virtualized environment into one solution set, is one of the biggest hardware areas that we're likely to see over the next couple of years. If we move to slide 25, and I've highlighted the different types of integrated infrastructure here, what we're seeing are a whole new class of offerings from different vendors. Now, unified computing is possibly one of the best known, and this is often associated with Cisco and their UCS platform, which was introduced in 2009, which was really a groundbreaking design bringing together networking and servers into the same architecture. And it was this that brought Cisco into the server environment in the enterprise. And that continues to do extremely well. It's very much completely designed for a virtualized environment. However, you also need things to go alongside that. And so the category that we call converged infrastructure is where we take that server and network core and then combine it with storage solutions and with software solutions. Now, this is a very hot area at the moment because there's a deficit of expertise inside companies where people actually have combined expertise in storage, networking, and servers. And therefore, what these solutions do is, at the vendor perspective, put together reference architectures, technologies that are designed to plug together seamlessly, and therefore become easier to manage. They're a sort of higher-level building block. Now, these things come from a number of different sources. Often Cisco is at the heart of these things. In those areas, there are things like VCE VBlock solutions, EMC vSpecs, NetApp FlexPod. HDS has a solution there. And then you have the vendor-specific ones, such as Pure Systems from IBM, Cloud System from HP, and some new introductions later last year from Dell that also address the same area. And all of those product areas are becoming more popular. Initially, people were a little bit afraid of potential vendor lock-in, but especially these multi-vendor types of initiatives where they can plug and play with different vendors' equipment have started becoming pretty popular in the general-purpose server marketplace. The other area that's quite interesting, and this also sort of ties back a little bit to HPC, are in the areas of database appliances and data and business analytics appliances. And here you're very much seeing sort of HPC-class technologies, including things like InfiniBand and, of course, the SSD storage, designed to provide access to big data and heavy-duty analytics. Possibly some of the best characterized systems here would be Oracle Exadata, and they certainly qualify very well from the technology point of view. But what we've been finding on the planning side is that people in general favor the general purpose solutions more so than they do the sort of appliance-oriented single vertical stack solutions. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out between the various general purpose vendors and either the single vendor solutions like IBM or HP or the vertically oriented things like Oracle Exadata. And perhaps the final area of interest is in slide number 30. This is the server's software technology roadmap. Now, the same sort of color interpretation applies here, where the dark blue means technologies are in use, and the orange means that the technology people have no plans for, and therefore the middle colored area is where we're expecting to see things tick up in the next couple of years. Now, in this area, the top third of this chart basically represents the technologies that you need for base virtualization. The middle area, which is where we're seeing the most future planning in the next couple of years, is the section of an automated virtualized data center. So all the tools that are required, so instead of having an admin setting up your virtual systems, you can have software that automatically runs the scripts when people request something, and it's repeated exactly. Bottom third of the chart, this is more the cloud-oriented technologies where you have policy-based automation that can actually make decisions about what goes where. And while there is definitely some interest in that, most people aren't ready to use that yet. So what we're really expecting to see is a lot of activity in this automation area for the next couple of years. Now, there are no particular individual vendors that dominate that space. There are the usual players like BMC, CA, VMware, of course, but there are an awful lot of very small companies in that area that have very good niche solutions. And that is an area where we're expecting to see a lot of merger and acquisition activity. The sort of thing we saw over the last year with Dell buying Quest software, VMware snapping up Dynamic Ops. A lot of these smaller companies that are getting onto the agenda are becoming very attractive to the larger vendors as they flesh out their portfolios. So that really gives a quick summary of some of the important trends that we're seeing in terms of where people are in the industry today and the types of technologies we expect to see them focusing on in the next couple of years.
Well, thank you, Peter. A question that came to mind for me is, what were the aha moments when you looked at this research in terms of maybe conclusions that defied conventional wisdom, maybe?
That's a very good question. And at one level, because this is an ongoing multi-year process, not so much in terms of an aha moment in the trends, but what is really interesting is how the different vendors are faring. If I step back and have a look at that, back to 2009, big things happened. We had IBM and HP, of course, out in the marketplace, top data center vendors, but suddenly Cisco, the networking vendor, joined the server space. Sun Microsystems was acquired by Oracle. And Dell appeared to be sort of sliding a little bit backwards to becoming almost potentially a sort of second-tier PC vendor or server vendor, x86 vendor. If we come forwards to 2012, 2013, that picture is actually very, very different. IBM continues to go along fairly well, but it's not as dynamic as some people would like it to be. HP is clearly struggling as a vendor. There's continuing discussion about whether it'll even survive, whether it'll be broken up. Cisco, on the other hand, has really come out very, very strongly and is, by our respondents, referenced as the most exciting of the hardware-related vendors. VMware, the most exciting on the software side. And then when we think about Sun Microsystems, it's gone into Oracle. Oracle has largely taken it out of the general-purpose computing space and focused exclusively on Exadata, and so appears to be sliding out of this end-to-end data center capability and going to be focused back very much on its software and maybe supporting hardware to do that, but not as a major end-to-end player. And then against that, Dell has actually come roaring back with a very solid strategy of making major acquisitions, building a very strong team, and really positioning itself as a very viable end-to-end data center provider. And this is all being picked up by our respondents in terms of how they feel about the companies. And that is a very, very big change. I would say that is the big aha moment that comes out of this, that the whole vendor landscape going forwards is going to be very different to how it was just a few years ago.
And in terms of the x86, Peter, if you were sitting down with somebody like Intel or AMD, what do they need to do to take advantage of these trends?
Clearly, on the x86 side, it's continuing to design systems that will be extremely efficient in a virtualized environment. Now, this has actually played very well for Intel over the last few years. And the reason being is that virtualization is complex. And when people want to employ live migration, where they can move an application from one server to another while keeping it operating, it becomes very important that the systems are standardized. Live migration doesn't work very well across different classes of systems. So, for example, going from Intel to AMD often is a problem. This has favored Intel because people have tended to say, well, if I'm going to standardize, I'm going to standardize on one thing. And Intel has been the dominant vendor. And that's been a very hard thing for AMD during this period. However, looking forwards, another part of things that is going to change dramatically is client virtualization. And here we're looking at a whole new world where there'll be personal applications, business applications in the data center on the back end, and things being sent out to a whole range of client devices. The trend of bring your own device. So whether it's an Android tablet or an Apple tablet or some kind of new tablet, maybe a Microsoft Surface or whatever, a very, very different set of architectures on the front end in end users' hands. And those typically today are not dominated by x86 architectures. So this provides an opportunity for companies like NVIDIA and for AMD with the ARM-based architectures And it also poses a challenge for Intel to make sure that its own mobile-focused processors gain enough traction in that marketplace. And so far, they've been struggling to catch up. So we see a big change there for the processor vendors.
Well, great. Well, Peter, we're running short on time here, so I just wanted to ask about how do people engage with you if this information sounds like the kind of thing they need to succeed in business? How do they work with the InfoPro?
Well, that's pretty straightforward. You get in touch with 451 Research and our sales teams and our client support representatives. And one of the things that one can do is purchase our syndicated services. And these are available, in various different forms. So depending on what your needs are, it's clearly talk to us and engage with us. And clearly we have many clients who take this information and get regular reports from us. But also people can buy one-off elements. We also do custom research for various clients. So it's really a question of deciding what your needs may be. Get on the phone and call us at 451 Research, and we'll be very happy to talk with you.
Well, terrific. Well, Peter Ffoulkes, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Rich, and I look forward to working with you over the coming year.
You bet. Okay, folks, that's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on the world of cloud computing.